I'd like to welcome this next person, Katie Weagle. She's a child life specialist from Mass General Hospital. I know this particularly because as my son has had his MRIs when he was younger and needed to be sedated, she was the first face of MRI and that entire process, and gave us so much comfort and had all these tricks of the trade and ways to really make it a positive experience so that we didn't fear it, knowing that, boys are going to be monitored every 6 months. And so maybe if it doesn't go well the first time, you're going to have a fight every single time. Every single time it was great. And so I owe a lot of that debt of gratitude to Katie Weagle. And so I'll invite her up here to give a presentation about supporting the family.
Hi, my name is Katie, as Kathleen said. I am one of the child life specialists at Massachusetts General Hospital. We have child life specialists throughout the hospital, and I have the fortunate time of being in radiology, which I love. Kathleen had approached me at maybe the end of the summer about coming to you guys and putting on a talk about supporting the family. And I reached back out to her after sitting with it and thinking about it because it's such a very huge topic. And there's so many things that you could talk about. So I've tried to sit and come with some thoughts that I think will be helpful to at least some in the room, or that you'll be able to take one thing with you today that you might be able to carry with you, whether you're an individual family member or a professional in the room. So I also was trying to be mindful and thoughtful that families here are all at different points of care and emotional need. So wanting to be mindful of that, and that there are also many healthcare practitioners in the room with varying degrees of experience and expertise. So it's kind of hard to come up with a very pinpointed topic. So please feel free to jump in and provide any feedback, or if you have your own thoughts on it, that would be great too. So I just wanted to talk about the presentation overview. My hope from this is that defining what it means to be a family member, which I know sounds a little strange, but also to kind of talk about what it's like to be a family member with someone with a medical need or an illness. I do have personal experience with that myself, so some of this is from personal experience as well as my professional experience. I won't read the slide for you, but the aim of my presentation is just to offer some insight into the physical and emotional distress that will occur during a family member's illness, and the importance of finding balance and taking care of yourself in order to make the positive adjustments needed to become the caregiver. And this also can apply to just as you as the person going through the emotions of having the disease or experiencing the disease also. So I like this quote. It's a Burmese proverb. It just says, "In time of test, family is best." Your family is your structure, your rock. It's what you first came to in life and what you've grown up with. It's what you know. And so while every family is unique, I think it's important to recognize that family is more inclusive than just parents and children. Family extends to your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your siblings, your cousins, your close friends. Also, I think you could add, particularly with this group, members of your healthcare team. I think for a lot of you, they become members of your family as well. Everyone in your family is going to struggle with different emotions and will be impacted differently by this disease and what you're dealing with in everyday life over the years of having this within the family. I think together you guys will negotiate many challenges and transitions, ultimately with providing solace with one another and to support one another. But that doesn't mean everyone gets there in the same way. The most common response to getting the news of an illness is grief. Anyone grieves. It's a loss. It's the loss of an idea of what life might have been when you find out your child has this. When you as yourself have it, you kind of grieve and you go through lots of emotions. it's ever evolving, it's intrinsic, it's specific to your own self, which is what can make it sometimes challenging to be supportive of other family members. Some of the most common ones that come with an initial diagnosis, the treatment, and then as the treatment evolves and the prognosis of the disease kind of progresses, is constant fear, worry, and anxiety, guilt, sadness, anger, resentment, loneliness, numbness and emptiness, and denial. All of us go through that point. We may sit with that for a bit of one of these emotions or many of these emotions at one time. It's very unlikely that each family member is going to be in that same spot with you. When your mom may be in denial while you're very angry, or you've had some sort of acceptance. So everyone's going to kind of transition. And then over the years and over times and days, that's going to be different for each individual person. So these are just some common ones that I think are important to identify. Sorry, I don't like public speaking, so I get a little nervous. The constant wave of emotions that you experience cause physical and mental health symptoms. So they can often occur simultaneously with varying degrees of intensity, meaning that these emotions that you're feeling, whether you're consciously aware of them or not, are going to cause either emotional or physical problems, and they often go hand in hand. So as I stated, emotional reactions for each family member are going to be different, and sometimes this can be a cause for friction and discord amongst the relationships or dynamics within the family. When you're learning about treatment options, when you're learning about how the disease was shared and stuff, there can be a lot of resentment, there can be a lot of anger, there can be a lot of guilt, blame placed on another, and these feelings can evolve and change over years. So the other things that can happen with the illness, and I'm sure you all already are aware of many of these, the roles and responsibilities within the family will shift. So you may be the daughter, and you may now be taking care of your mother. You may be a sister, and you're now taking care of your brother. The caregiver role can change, and it constantly changes. You may be an older individual, and you've been able to live your life, and your parent now is no longer able to care for your sibling, and now you've taken that role over with, like, as an adult, and your life is going to change in that. So I think that your family role and your responsibilities will constantly change. The other thing that changes with that is your self-identity can also change. So the ALD family, and that might be how you're recognized in the community, or what you think, when the fact is that's not what other people think of you. Your identity changed in that you were a college student, and now you have to be at home to help support your family, things along those lines. I think also religious and spiritual beliefs are challenged and can be strengthened during these times. I think people look to their spiritual and religious beliefs for comfort and solace, but it also can be a point where there's some anger and frustration in that. The other, as nothing new, I guess, financial challenges will likely arise, which also can cause strain and discord amongst family, and just trying to learn to navigate those things. So with all of these things, the burnout is the most common term used. Burnout is an emotional and physical reaction to constant exposure to stress. Common responses are fatigue and exhaustion, irritability, physical symptoms and issues in isolation, or kind of withdrawing from the group. And so it's important to kind of identify the emotions that you're having, and kind of acknowledge that every family member is going to experience this a little bit differently. So the big thing is caring for your mind and spirit. In order to be the best caregiver you can be, whether you're whichever family member role you have, in order to be a cohesive family unit and to put that united front forward and be supportive of each other and to have a healthy family relationship, you have to take care of yourself first. So taking care of your basic physical and emotional needs is a priority, but self-care is really important. So the term I use as self-care, and it's a fluffy phrase, as it may sound, it's critical to our ability to positively cope and adapt. So as I said earlier, small amounts of stress are okay, but a large amount of stress over extended periods of time are not, and it will cause you physical harm. So self-care is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. There is no perfect formula to self-care, as no two people are alike. I found a quote recently on the Harvard Health blog for Harvard Medical School from a psychiatrist named Dr. Marilyn Wee. She's now completed her fellowship and she works in New York City. But I felt like this was really important when you talk about providing self-care and being mindful of what's happening in your life. Being kind to yourself builds the foundation to self-care. Self-compassion means giving yourself credit for the tough, complex works of caregiving, stepping away from self-critical, harsh inner voices, and allowing yourself time, even if it's just a minute a day, to take care of yourself. I think that's really important to remember. That you're only going to be your best self if you're giving yourself a few moments each day to kind of regenerate and recharge your battery, so to speak. In terms of self-care, there are 5 types of self-care, if you will. Physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, and professional care. The physical care is kind of that stereotypical eating healthier, exercising, getting some quiet time, some personal time. It's always easier said than done. You may not have time to eat during the day or exercise, but trying to find some small parts of providing yourself with some physical care is important. Even kind of having a quiet time, such as like watching a movie, or just it's a time to allow your body to rest, is also kind of important as well. Emotional care is the simple act of allowing yourself to feel emotions. So meaning like if you feel the need to cry, give you that time to cry. Go, give yourself that space to cry. If you need to be angry, go yell. If you need to yell at somebody who's in your family, most family members, whether you're calling your aunt, your grandparent, your sister, a close friend, your healthcare provider, a member of your healthcare team, if you need to vent or talk, like that's, you have to call Dr. Eichler, but, that's very important for you to acknowledge that you have to provide emotional care for yourself. Your feelings and your emotions are also crucial and important. And if you're holding on to them, you're just going to build up some resentment and it's just going to cause further problems. Psychological care is not I think what most people think when they hear psychological care. What I mean more for psychological care is challenging, engaging your mind in activities. We all get to be very monotonous in our daily routines, and it can kind of just become mind-numbing. And you kind of just space and you just go through the motions. So it's important to engage in some sort of psychological care, meaning take time to do puzzles, visit a museum, write, journal. Some people enjoy music. Things that kind of cause you or kind of force you to be more thought-provoking. Another aspect of self-care that's important is spiritual care. And I don't really mean religion by this. Religion is another separate thing in its entirety, but spiritual care is more the simple act of getting in touch with your inner spirit, meaning if you're the jokester of the family and it's been a while since you've been the jokester of the family, it's like getting in touch with that aspect of yourself. And so that's also an important thing, is just learning to be yourself again sometimes. And then professional care is exactly what it sounds like. Sometimes doing things on your own is not enough. You may need some individual therapy. You may need family therapy. You may need group counseling. So seeking the help of a professional who can guide you through some of the things that you're feeling is really also very important. A little less intensive of that is also finding professional care in terms of learning new relaxation things, whether you're going to attempt yoga or learn Reiki or different meditation specialists, things like that. Those are also those professionals in there. So you may not need something like therapy, but finding a resource or something that can teach you something new to do in order to help your mind relax is also important. So just some examples of self-care. It's just a big chart and kind of just threw things up here, and feel free if you guys have your own things that you've done or tried to also add them in there. So being self-compassionate is a big thing I think that all of us forget to do. We're very hard on ourselves. We think we should be able to do more, get more done in the day, say something different or better, just like I'm thinking in my head right now about all the things I probably should have talked about but haven't. So being somewhat more compassionate to yourself is really important. Looking for positive moments in life. It's really easy for you to get wrapped up in negative, to talk about this person's fault that this didn't get done, it's my fault that this didn't get done, I didn't get to the gym, I'm going to beat myself up. So looking for the positive moments. The positive moments is you decided to take that flight of stairs instead of the elevator at work. So reframing your thought. Your kids did something that just made you laugh and laugh and laugh. A small thing that would probably be meaningless to somebody else but meant the world to you. So finding those positive moments, using things like music. I really like music. Music is a big outlet for me. I like to work out. I do a combination of like high intensive interval training and CrossFit because I really need like that angry, explosive, get it out. I'm one of those people. But I also have found that utilizing things like yoga and meditation have also been very helpful for me. So trying to like mix it in, but music is always a part of that. So I do it like the angry music or the calming spa music, all like work in there and are good ways. So there's no one perfect thing that will work. You can try lots of different things for yourself. And music may not be the thing for you. Healthy eating is also, we talked about, easier said than done. Even if you pick one meal a day or one snack a day, that's kind of a great start in terms of that. But if you really think about the times that you've like buckled down and you're going to do this diet, or you're really going to focus on it, those times that you're feeding and fueling your body with the right things and the things that make you feel good, your mind feels good too, and you feel like you can be your best self. So that's why everyone forces the healthy eating. Also the medical aspects of being healthy eating is good. I did talk about seeking individual counseling. There is no shame in going to therapy. There are people who have lots of vast knowledge and are able to kind of figure things out in a way that you might. We come very tunnel thought, and a psychologist or a therapist, social worker, whomever, is able to kind of get you to break out of that tunnel and kind of help you think more broadly. So individual counseling, group counseling, family and marriage counseling. The family part, again, is very important because everyone's going to be handling what's going on in their life with a different emotion. Speaking from that personal experience that I have, my mom is a talker. She wants to sit and talk for hours about how she's feeling, what we could have done differently, how can we do things before, and my sister and I could not be more opposite than her. And so sitting for hours in a room, we just like want to crawl out of our skins and scream and yell. So we have very different styles of coping, and sometimes those will come together and not be so productive. So we actually did go into a family counseling session just to help us kind of learn perspective of what the other was thinking and try and reframe our mind as to why this worked for them but didn't for us, and then trying to be a little bit more mindful of it was very helpful. Getting quality sleep, again, easier said than done, but when your body has time to recharge, your mind is going to think more clearly. You're going to be able to present your best self and be right in front for your family. Artistic expression. I am not artistic. I'm a sad child life specialist at our hospital. I can draw a solid stick figure, but anything other than that, I'm not the person you get for art activities. But if you have that part of you that's loving to do art, it's a great expression, and that's something you can just do that few moments in the day. If you have a doodle pad in your bag with some markers or a pencil, you can sketch real quick. You can just do something small. A big thing I find is remaining socially connected, where I gave you my personal experience of how I like to just kind of sit with things and be kind of quiet. I did find that I became very socially isolated. I kind of withdrew into myself, and for the beginning it probably worked out okay, but as things progressed over time, it didn't, and I developed a pretty major depression over it, and you don't realize it when you're in the midst of it. And so really being cognizant and trying to remain open and even though you don't feel like going out with your friends for that cup of coffee, or you don't feel like doing those things, really pushing yourself to do it is very helpful and important. And we talked about spirituality. The mind-body awareness is also important. That's just, utilizing things like Reiki, meditation, yoga, some alternative therapies, as we like to say in the healthcare field. I was always a huge skeptic of meditation myself. I cannot quiet my head at all. I thought I was failing miserably at like sitting in the yoga studio trying to do all the breathing and do all that. And I realized through a little bit more research, there's so many different forms of meditation. There's 5 seconds just to say something in your head or take a deep breath. Like I find doing like a mantra, saying something in my head, or picking a positive affirmation, really just, I'm smiling in my head, and then you find yourself doing that. So just something to try. And then family time, we're talking about self-care and kind of having time for yourself, but also engaging in family and fun things is also important as well. Some other things that within the mind-body awareness that are easy to do, because not everyone has time in their day to go to an hour and a half yoga class or spend a half hour meditating. There are a lot of podcasts that you can use, a lot of apps. Calm is one. I love the 10% Happier app. Dan Harris from ABC News. He has an entire podcast about utilizing meditation as a form of managing anxiety and feelings of grief. And then we talked about affirmations. Does anyone have anything else that they would throw in here? And then ultimately, in terms of self-care, you are your best advocate. Communication is really important. It's hard to do. So communicating openly with your family, friends, your healthcare providers, and members of your faith community is really important. Try and find someone you can trust and that you feel like trustworthy, and that you can really just sit and be very honest and open with. And those people tend to not have judgment, and you can kind of just say whatever is in your heart at that moment, and they're going to be there to support you and just let it out. Be wary of negative self-care behaviors. This is a big one. Things like turning to alcohol and drugs to become a way of like coping. Those are things that kind of can obviously be helpful in those moments, but over long term, there's a lot of issues with that. And so if you find yourself, or you find a family member kind of turning toward negative care, self-care, or negative coping, it's really important to seek help immediately. Again, speaking from personal experiences, the addiction quality can be even more of a dynamic on top of the disease. That's a huge issue. So being wary of negative behaviors is also important. Make an honest evaluation of what you can and can't do as the caregiver. And then ask for help, which again is really hard to do. Everyone wants to do it themselves. But you're going to burn yourself out, and you're not going to be able to be present and do what you need to do in order to provide that care. So we call it giving yourself respite, trying to do that. The communication openly, when you were talking earlier in the day about the phone calls that you guys have, that's a huge thing. The Scout program, things like that are also huge to have that the community support around it. But also you can be wary or mindful of when you have community support of somebody who's going through like similar situations, that you're all experiencing those situations a little bit differently, and you all will be in different parts of your journey, if you will. And so sometimes taking some of the information and sitting with it is important, so you can process it differently, and you may hear things that aren't always helpful, and other times you might. So it's just kind of something to keep in mind. Also part of the negative behavior, sorry, I finally got to my note page. Other negative behaviors or negative coping is overeating, or turning to food as a way of managing feelings, withdrawal, becoming more aggressive, or having more angry outbursts, kind of turning toward anger as a way of when you're looking at what you can and cannot do, just remind yourself that you have many superpowers, but even superheroes need help, and so it's important to ask for it. They all have partners in crime, so to speak, that they look to pick up where their strengths are not there, but there's somebody else within your family who has that strength or that ability to do that. Sometimes it gets to be too much, and reaching out to palliative care teams or even hospice services can become a huge support and a guidance for you through navigating some things that are just not knowledgeable to you, that you're not sure what to do. And then also seeking financial assistance when needed. Finances obviously cause a lot of hardship, so reaching out to organizations like the ALD Connect to see if they have resources in terms of who you can get in touch with. I know with a lot of the patients I work with within just the small groups, in terms of financial assistance, it's sharing equipment, like sharing a wheelchair, sharing materials that they have that they don't need anymore but would be useful for another family too. So simple things like that, to something more expansive, to looking to insurance companies or something bigger. Ultimately, every family is going to be unique, each with their own belief system, values, and needs, and nothing is going to erase the overwhelming feelings of grief and distress, or that transition that you're going to have over the course of many, many years. But providing yourself with some positive self-care is going to allow you to be proactive in supporting your family as a whole. And as practitioners, I feel like, or healthcare professionals, it's important for us to recognize signs of distress and how to help point our families into more positive areas of comfort and support, in order to help them kind of navigate the overwhelming feelings that they're having. So I'm just going to end with this quote. I like quotes. So this is from Eleanor Roosevelt: "With the new day comes new strength and new thoughts." So every day is a new beginning. There's always a clean slate ahead of you. So if you feel like you aren't tackling the day the way you want, there's always that chance to do it again. Do you guys have any questions?